Nearly 3 years after Naomi Judd's untimely death, Larry Strickland has finally disclosed the truth about what actually transpired on the morning of April 30, 2022. What he revealed a number of previously unknown facts, including Naomi's last remarks, in addition to elucidating the circumstances surrounding her death. For the first time, a music legend's quiet husband came out to reveal everything, what actually took place in the background. Now let's find it. Born in 1946 in North Carolina, Larry Strickland grew up in a family of Baptist preachers. At an early age, he became passionate about music, and afterwards joined J.D. as their bass vocalist. The ensemble that toured with Elvis Presley was Sumner and the Stamps Quartet. When he first met Naomi in Nashville in 1979, he was drawn to her because she was strong, charismatic, and experienced. They got married 10 years later, when Naomi was at the height of her Judd stardom. From the marriage was anything from easy. Larry soon came to the conclusion that Naomi was not like any woman he had ever encountered, as he described in the documentary The Judd Family: Truth Be Told. She was intelligent, powerful, and exuded star-like energy as she entered any space. However, that also meant it was never easy to live with her. According to Larry, their early years were spent figuring out how to cope with Naomi's ever-changing thoughts, feelings, and even way of life. He asserted that Naomi was not just an artist, but also oversaw other facets of family life, including food preparation, wardrobe, and her daughter's filming schedules. Naomi moved into television and book publishing after the Judds retired in 1991 as a result of her being diagnosed with hepatitis C. Larry kept on playing in gospel ensembles, but he always stayed in the background. "I don't like being in the spotlight, and I was never there to attract attention for Naomi. She was a light by herself. That genius carried a heavy psychological burden." Larry recounted instances in which his wife's precarious mental state forced him to postpone all of his performance engagements. He was the first to recognize the onset of chronic sleep difficulties, the only one to drag Naomi out of bed after days of severe sadness, and the only one to accompany her to treatment sessions, beginning in 2007. Larry never did, however, speak in public. In an interview with People magazine, he stated, "I think the best way to protect her was to remain silent. I didn't believe that the public should be aware of her struggles. I believed her singing was all they needed to hear." In the industry, Larry was known as the gatekeeper of the Judd family because of his patience. Naomi's co-workers referred to him as the quiet barrier. The person who oversaw logistics maintained composure throughout Naomi's emotional outbursts and frequently offered an apology on her behalf when she abruptly canceled events or accepted contracts. Larry used to say, "I didn't need anyone to understand. All I needed was for her to be aware of my presence." In this capacity, Larry was also the only one who could preserve the whole memory of everything that happened behind the scenes. And from this vantage point, Larry described the instant he realized Naomi was no longer there. It took him almost 3 years to find the fortitude to relate the memories of what he saw, did, and felt in that hour. The terrible moment of fate. Larry says the morning of that day started off just like any other. On the afternoon of April 29, 2022, Naomi returned after a brief trip to Vienna, Austria. Nobody was aware of the reason for the trip, and Larry was unable to join her because of his Florida performance schedule. Naomi left him a final voicemail prior to her trip. "I'll be home shortly," she said succinctly, feeling worn out. Larry claims that after she returned, she displayed indications of both physical and mental decline. She sat calmly with her hands gripping her glass of water and didn't say much, staring out the window but not really paying attention to anything. Naomi got up earlier than normal on the morning of April 30th. Larry prepared the prescription medication she was taking and made coffee. She gave a nod. No grin. Nothing to say. "After the flight, I assumed she was simply exhausted." Larry left the house for around 15 minutes at 9:30 m to go to the neighborhood drugstore and get additional medication. He was unaware that it would be his last chance to see Naomi alive. The bedroom door was closed when he got back at approximately 9:57 a.m. He yelled, but no one responded. Naomi was lying on the bed still as he entered. She killed herself using a firearm, which had been registered in her name since 1997, according to later accounts. "I can't describe that scene," Larry said after pausing for a few seconds in his People magazine interview. "It took me many minutes to realize what was occurring while I stood motionless." He contacted Naomi's 2 daughters and emergency services right away. The first person to come was Ashley Judd. She acknowledged that she had spent the night before with her mother, and that there were no overt warning indications. "Our conversation was typical. I departed shortly before midnight. Nobody believed that would be the final instance." Months after the incident, Ashley shared on CBS Sunday Morning. Within 20 minutes, police were on the scene. The attending medical staff reported that Larry stayed composed and completely compliant. He promptly turned down all calls from the media. Details of Naomi's passing were kept completely private for the next 24 hours until the family made an official announcement early on May 1. the precise day the Judds were to be inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. Notably, there was no suicide note left by Naomi. Don't think she intended it, Larry thought. I believe she thought there was no way out at that particular moment. Later, medical records showed that Naomi had been hospitalized numerous times, was receiving treatment with strong antidepressants, and had undergone several rounds of electroconvulsive therapy. The Judd family had to decide whether to hold the ceremony or call it off after Naomi passed away just hours before the induction. Ashley and Winona made the decision to proceed, standing on stage in disbelief but with fortitude. Larry chose not to go, staying at home to coordinate the funeral plans and collaborate with detectives. With my head still spinning, I was unable to stand in front of a throng. I wanted to ensure that everything remained in its proper place, in accordance with Naomi's wishes. Larry stayed out of the spotlight for about 2 years following the incident. He did not post on any platform, attend any memorial services, or conduct any interviews. It took me some time to realize what I had just lost. In a 2025 interview, he stated, "I had to accept that I was there, but I couldn't save her." The international media extensively covered Naomi Judd's death. However, Larry only verified the most of the specifics after he made the decision to speak up. He didn't want to revisit wounds or claim credit by recounting that day. It was done to support people who are living with a depressed person. Recognize this occasionally. It may be forever if you are only a few minutes late. However, things didn't start the day Naomi died. Over 10 years had passed since the breakdown began, with both obvious and quiet warning signs. If only they had been chosen for seeing. 10 years of decline. Naomi Judd's death was the product of a psychiatric decline that lasted more than 10 years, not an abrupt, impulsive act. Larry Strickland attested to having seen changes in his wife's disposition, conduct, and routine starting in the early 2000s. The first indications came when Naomi suddenly stopped making appearances on television, reduced their employment commitments, and started staying inside the house for longer amounts of time. The most concerning years, in Larry's opinion, were 2011 through 2013. Almost all of Naomi's life was spent alone. She avoided friends, didn't answer the phone, and spoke to her family very seldom. On some days, she would spend 14 hours in bed before getting out of bed to sit quietly in the living room, before going back to sleep. He remembered that in order to keep her from missing or purposefully skipping her meds, all meals had to be prepared ahead of time and they had to be put in designated locations. Naomi was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD,
severe depression, and anxiety disorder. She was admitted to McLean Hospital for many treatments, a well-known Massachusetts clinic that focuses on severe and unresponsive mental health issues. She received electroconvulsive therapy, or ECT, there. Naomi stated in a 2016 interview that it was the last option when all other options had failed. Her total disengagement from social events, even when invited by prominent organizations, was one concerning indication. For a long time, she exclusively wrote in her journals, but kept them to themselves. Later, Larry discovered a large number of similar notebooks with sporadic writings like, "I'm useless, I am not needed, it feels like a prison sentence every morning." These were unmistakable signs of late-stage progressive depression, according to mental health professionals. Relationships were also affected by Naomi's illness. Winona characterized her mother as erratic, able to snap from even the smallest thing, like an untimely glance. Ashley revealed that at one point, she was afraid of her mother's unpredictable emotions and was hesitant to take her to events. Larry made the decision to remain silent and made every effort to maintain stability at home. He stated, "I didn't want anyone else to see her like that. I believed that by keeping everything a secret, I could keep her safe." Despite ongoing treatment, Naomi didn't demonstrate any discernible progress. She attended weekly therapy sessions and used a variety of prescribed medications. Sometimes, however, she flatly refused therapy, claiming that nothing more could be done to help. According to medical records made public in the documentary, Naomi had made 2 prior attempts at suicide, in 2012 and 2018. The media did not report either incident. She had written multiple farewell notes, but Larry revealed that she later tore them up. He once found that she had carefully packed all of her performance attire, setting an old photograph on top of the suitcase. But she quickly said, "I'm just tidying up a bit," when he inquired. "The most agonizing part is that I had all the information necessary to comprehend what was going on, so Larry didn't instantly suspect the worst when Naomi returned from Vienna, weary the day before she passed away. But I didn't want to believe it," Larry said. That sense of helplessness still weighs on him when he reflects on the past. After Naomi's passing, it wasn't just the tangible loss that lingered. Her fractured relationships with her daughters became a public focal point. Questions surrounding the will, responsibilities, and truth within the Judd family began to surface more intensely than ever before.
the collapse of a model family portrait. When news emerged in 2023 that Naomi Judd had left her entire estate to her husband, Larry Strickland, the public was shocked. Though longtime followers of the Judd family were not surprised, the relationship between Naomi and her two daughters, Wynonna and Ashley, had never been entirely smooth. Naomi's death not only left a void in the music world, but also reignited years-long tensions within the family. The will, signed in 2017, made no mention of Wynonna or Ashley. An estimated estate of over $25 million was transferred entirely to Larry. Media outlets reported widely, sparking debate, ranging from accusations that Naomi intentionally excluded her daughters to speculation that she was no longer of sound mind when drafting the document. Larry, though, stated in an interview with People magazine, she was deliberate and very clear. "I don't know the exact reason, but I know she didn't do anything lightly." Wynonna Judd initially declined to comment. Weeks later, during a press conference for her memorial tour, she said briefly, "I'm not someone who cares about money. I care about the truth. And the truth is, I always loved my mother, even when she didn't love me the way I needed." The statement was quickly picked up by the media, revealing that the mother-daughter bond was far more complex than what audiences had seen on stage over 3 decades. In the documentary, The Judd Family Truth Be Told, several voicemails confirmed periods of strain between Naomi and Wynonna. A message dated February 14, 2021 captured Naomi saying, "You only call me when you need something. I don't want to be a shadow anymore." In return, Wynonna replied coldly, "If you feel like a shadow, it's because you put yourself behind." These were deeply cutting words. Ashley Judd, the younger daughter, had long maintained distance from both her mother and sister. In her memoir, All That Is Bitter and Sweet, she wrote, "My childhood was full of absence, both physical and emotional. She lived primarily with her grandparents, while her mother and sister were on tour." Although Naomi later tried to make amends, the gap had never been fully closed. After her mother's death, Ashley remained out of the public eye, offering only a brief statement. "I respect my mother's decision." Larry found himself in the middle of his wife's 2 estranged daughters becoming an unintended bridge. He shared that after Naomi's death, it was the first time he saw Wynonna and Ashley sit together through an entire visit without walking away. They started listening to each other, no more talking through someone else. That hadn't happened in 20 years, he said. One of the most notable moments at Naomi's memorial concert was when the sisters embraced after performing Love Can Build a Bridge, the song that had come to symbolize the Judds. A detail revealed in the documentary that drew attention was the discovery of handwritten letters Naomi had written to both daughters but never sent. In a letter to Wynonna, she wrote, "I'm sorry for putting my career before our relationship. I thought working together would bring us closer, but maybe it just wore you out more." To Ashley, she wrote, "I always thought you were strong. Maybe that's why I never realized you needed to be held like a child too." The 2 letters were found in the drawer beside the bed, placed in unmarked envelopes. Larry discovered them while cleaning the room after the funeral. He kept them, and later gave them to Wynonna and Ashley. Wynonna shared, and by extended silences, after the funeral, Wynonna and Ashley began appearing together more frequently at commemorative events. Though never publicly announcing any reconciliation, through it all, Larry was no longer the silent husband. What he shared after nearly 3 years was not just the truth, it was a wake-up call, and the final message he believed Naomi wanted the world to hear. A warning after all. Nearly 3 years after Naomi Judd's passing, Larry Strickland has begun speaking at mental health conferences, talking to the media, and joining community initiatives as someone who survived the aftermath of a loved one's depression, stayed silent for too long, and the price I paid was losing the person I loved most. He said silent for too long, and the price I paid was losing the person I loved most.
During a March 2025 gathering with the NAMI organization, after a long period of privacy, Larry began sharing everything that had happened in Naomi's final years. He spoke not only from personal emotion, but with the clarity of someone who had lived beside a person battling severe depression for more than a decade. In an interview with NBC News, he stated, "But I didn't understand enough to act in time." Alongside Larry, Naomi's 2 daughters also experienced significant shifts. Wynonna started the Back from Silence tour with a message of emotional fortitude following loss, as well as musical comeback. Ashley took part in university panels where she discussed family trauma and how to spot loved ones' psychological collapse. Although they each followed a different route, they all aimed to use Naomi's passing as a springboard for raising awareness. With previously unpublished content, the last voicemail, pictures of the bedroom following the incident, and Naomi's handwritten notes, the documentary The Judd Family Truth Be Told also significantly contributed to the message's dissemination. Even a seemingly perfect family can be subtly destroyed by mental illness, as the movie revealed. One of Larry's most cited quotes from the movie is that not everyone who commits suicide does so because they wish to die. They simply do not wish to continue living that way. The public took that message seriously.
Well-known performers like Reba McEntire, Martina McBride, Keith Urban, and Trisha Yearwood openly endorsed the Judd family's awareness effort. Major artists performed at a special event in Nashville at the end of 2022-24 with the theme No More Silence, which raised millions of dollars for local mental health organizations. Regarding Larry Strickland, he currently resides in peace and quiet in the former house in Lippers Fork, Tennessee, where he and Naomi lived for more than 30 years. He stated, "I'm not holding on to the past," in a CBS interview. "I preserve this space so that each morning when I exit the bedroom, I am reminded that I once shared a home with a lady who was both resilient and vulnerable in a way that the outside world never witnessed." In addition to illustrating a strong love, their tale revealed the boundaries of love in the face of protracted psychological gloom. The cause of Naomi Judd's death was years of cumulative quiet, miscommunication, and missed cues rather than a sudden passing. Larry saw every stage, from the times she made an effort to be normal to the times when things got out of hand. This anecdote is designed to serve as a reminder occasionally rather than to be lamented. Believing that the individual next to you is okay is the riskiest assumption. Have you ever seen someone quietly struggling? What do you think prevents so many people from speaking up? Leave a comment with your ideas. Additionally, share the video with others if you think this message is important. For more gripping tales in future videos, remember to subscribe to the channel.